The study, based on U.S. Census Bureau data collected on veteran employment, found that older veterans generally have the same industry distribution and unemployment rate as their civilian peers, which is interesting by itself. But veterans agreed, or not agreed, veterans aged 30 and under had stark differences in their workplace or workforce profiles. About 21% of veterans were employed in construction and maintenance jobs compared to 16% for non-veterans and nearly 22% in production or transportation work compared to 19% for non-veterans. Now, there's a couple more percentages here real quick, and then I want to pass it around. So veterans were less likely than their civilian peers to work in management, science or arts jobs, 25% versus 34%, or in sales or office posts, 14% to 16%, the study found. So it's interesting, the percentages, and I'm wondering how that correlates with the military's percentages for specific job functions, as well as enlisted versus officer and all that good stuff. So let's bounce it over to you, Randy. Let's get your thoughts.
Anytime I read an article that says the study finds, I get a little bit suspicious. I want to understand.
The study actually supports the hypothesis I had.
Right. Yeah. I want to understand, how that data was, examined and what processes, everyone went through to make a conclusion. So anytime a paragraph leads off with the study finds, I, have my little rabbit ears go up and I wonder. But I want to go to kind of the last thing first. I'm going to give my 2 cents and then over to Chris. And I do believe that there is some truth in the fact that military folks tend to find their way into less managerial opportunities than their civilian counterparts. And I think there's a couple of reasons for that. Probably the biggest is they're an unknown commodity, right? You have folks that have been in the civilian world, they've been in the industry, they've probably rubbed elbows with a future employer a few times. There's kind of that networking thing that happens. And so they get more leadership opportunities. So there's that piece. And the second piece is, I don't know that all civilian employers really understand how good of leaders military people of just about all ranks can be. Once you get even a few stripes on you, you get into a supervisory capacity in a lot of situations. You figure out how to lead people. In the military, you got every walk of life. East Coast kids, West Coast kids, boys, girls, conservative, liberal, however you want to slice and dice American society, it's going to be in the military, and you have to figure out how to work with them. And, once you've been in for a couple of years, you have to figure out how to lead them. And so the point that I'm trying to make here is, yeah, there is that gap in percentages that the article, mentioned, and I think it's probably accurate. But I don't think it should be so. I think people that come from the military, in most cases, tend to be pretty good leaders. And they've got just that back of the napkin common sense. Let's just jot this down and figure it out and get the team through it sort of mentality that is really valuable to most employers. And a lot of employers just don't see it. So what I'm trying to say is military folks tend to make better leaders than we are given credit for out the gate by our counterparts. So, Chris, you got something to say? I know it. So you're up, brother. You're up.
It's complete junk, man. The more I look at this, and I love this ability to throw this stuff around. Here's why the percentages are higher. Now, again, we're talking percentages, and so when you start breaking down pure numbers, you can look at this a little bit. Let's just go with the percentages. The reason why the numbers are higher in manufacturing and transportation is because the employers have gotten wise that they make great employees. The other thing is that we've all partnered with some of these organizations to create those talent pipelines and channels because those companies weren't leveraging military and veteran talent as wisely as they should have. So the reality is, and by the way, not all manufacturing and transportation jobs are dangerous, right? So now, if the point is that our veterans could be doing other things, and again, the numbers are veterans under 30. So no wonder why they're not into more management jobs yet, right? So of course, when you go into the military, and I felt this way. And I joined a civilian company that had nothing to do with shooting guns or blowing shit up with my helicopter or flying or anything else. And I went into human resources, which is a function that I had no idea even existed, even though I made a career out of it. And, it clicked once I got into the job that this is the kind of thing that I wanted to do. You feel like you're several years behind of your counterparts when you first start a new job. Now, you catch up quickly because of all of the soft skills, all of this discipline, all of the leadership training, all the things that we went through. But there's a catch up, especially if you join at 18 and you come out at 22 or 26 or whatever age you come out, you feel like you have to catch up. And the way to catch up is to build deeper subject matter expertise, learn a job, learn how to master it, and then you can start coaching and training others, right? So I think that all of this peripheral information to just create a topic that might stir conversation has worked and worked great, but I'm still not sure that there is anything that much more statistically different than what would happen if you looked at the data sets just a little bit from a different perspective and understand what's behind some of the things that are driving. And I would say the fact that we are getting veterans transition into jobs that are starter jobs that could actually help them understand how civilian companies work, get settled in, make a decent living, and then go back to school or then, go into management. To me, the system's working, right? That's again, unless there's like a higher number of veterans who are getting their fingers cut off, hooking up an 18-wheeler than civilians. I just don't know where to take it, right?
Yeah. So one of the things that I think about, just in regard to the percentages, and I don't, I don't have any numbers to back it up. It's just a thought. The overwhelming majority of veterans as a whole are going to do 4 years or less in the military, right? That's the bulk of people getting out of the military. And the bulk of those people never made it to the rank of NCO. It's just the numbers. That's just from just personal experience, just looking around and going, well, if that's what it is here, it's probably like that over there and over here and over there and over here. Now, maybe the Air Force is different. I don't know. Maybe they're all NCOs by the time they get out. I say that jokingly because my son is in the Air Force. So, but the bottom line is that the majority of veterans become a veteran under the age of 30 and they come out at a lower rank. And oftentimes they are going to, maybe be trying to get into a role. This is going to be not as big of a deal, but it's still there. They're going to be trying to potentially get into a role that's not exactly in line with what their MOS or AFSC was. Therefore, back to Chris's point, you are starting off behind the ball a little bit, but you have the wherewithal to basically leapfrog in front of your peers in a matter of a couple years. You can end up being their managers. It's just, you need to get in there and prove yourself. So far, the underlying thing that I'm kind of getting from this, and it's all perspective, right? It's kind of like looking at data and slicing it whichever way you want it, right? So you can read between the lines and you can kind of come up with your own kind of twists and turns. My feeling is that, and this might just be my own bias in wanting this to happen, right? Of employers need to be more willing to hire veterans, even if they don't fully meet the criteria, outside of these types of jobs where they're mostly in. So all the other industries, other than, construction, maintenance, that type of stuff, all the other industries out there. And granted, back to you, Chris, like a Vets in Tech is a way to help get veterans close enough. Then Vets in Tech builds these relationships with these organizations and is able to say, hey, look, I got them enough. I got them close enough. Get them on board. They'll learn more there and they'll take off running. because they're a veteran. That's why, right? So Joe Blow, who does it, well, they might have a harder time to get past the finish line on that. But with a veteran with enough information, enough knowledge to be dangerous, is dangerous, right? So let's get them in here and let them make it happen.